Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you guys are doing well today. It's Mr. Dorado here, and I am filming a new video for you guys. I am covering section 3.4 today. So what we're going to be talking about is the following few things. So as we've talked about before in this section, or in this chapter, we're writing equations of lines. Now, in this case, for section 3.4, we are actually writing equations of horizontal and vertical lines. So, excuse me. So, we are actually going to try to go ahead and reach these three objectives today. So we're going to try to write equations of horizontal and vertical lines given a slope and a point. Okay, so given a slope and a point, we're going to write equations of horizontal and vertical lines given 2 points. And also we're going to write equations of horizontal and vertical lines given a graph. Okay, and that's almost a review of a previous section that we did. So we're actually going to go ahead and start with that. Okay, so let's go ahead and remember a little bit about horizontal lines. Okay, so if we have something that says graph the line y equals 8. Okay, now we, in this case, because I already have my little table here, we already know that's going to be a horizontal line. But now let's think about it. Why is it a horizontal line? Well, let's go ahead and label our axes. This is the x-axis. This is the y-axis, right? Well, look, if I were to draw a vertical line here, and I'm just going to go ahead and place one anywhere right now, and that totally doesn't look like a horizontal line at all. Let's try it again. Something like that, okay? It's crossing what axis? Okay, a horizontal line crosses what axis? Well, as I'm coming, and let me go ahead and actually highlight it. As I'm coming from the left, I'm crossing right here. What axis? I crossed the y-axis, okay? Now, because I crossed the y-axis, then I know a horizontal line has to start with y equals. Now, that other part of the equation, so let me go ahead and erase this now, says that y equals line, that horizontal line, has to go through y equals 8. Well, where is 8? Well, 8 is right up here. Let's count on the y. 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right there. And it has to be, as we said, a horizontal line. So try to use a straight edge and draw that line. Okay. So again, y equals means it has to be a horizontal line. So always horizontal lines start with y equals. Okay. Start with y equals. Okay, so let's take a look at problem number 2 here on our horizontal line table. Okay, so it says, write the equation of the graph and determine the slope. Well, right here I can see that the graph is a horizontal line, and it, once again, as you can see, it crosses the y-axis at where? Where does it cross the y-axis? Well, it's right here. It crosses the y-axis right there. And that's actually the order pair 0, comma, -8, right? That's where it hits the y-axis, and hence it's another way you can call it is a y-intercept, right? So the y-intercept at 0, comma, -8. But when we write the equation, we know it has to start with a y, but which one of these two numbers am I using? Am I using the 0 or am I using the -8? Well, it's y equals, so which one of these is my y coordinate? Remember, this is my x, this is my y. Which one's my y coordinate? The -8. So it's y equals -8 is my equation. And now if you guys remember from the past and from a previous video, you guys will know now what the slope of a horizontal line is. If you don't remember, I'll give you guys two quick hints. let's actually pick another point on this line, right? I'm going to pick that one right there. Okay? As I go from the point on the left to the point on the right, let's see, am I rising at all? Rising or falling? No. Okay, so it'd be like 0. And am I running? Yeah, I'm running 5. But 0 divided by 5 is just 0, so my slope here has to be 0. Now, you might say, well, how did you pick that point? Or why did you pick that point? I didn't even have to pick that point, guys. Watch. If you guys remember, and hopefully this looks familiar, check this out. That, what I just drew, just looks like a Z, right? A Z that stands for 0. Now, what kind of lines do you see here? Well, you see, and let me go ahead and I see 2 horizontal lines. Okay, so that's one way to remember that. If you see horizontal lines when you make that big Z, that means it has to have a slope of 0. So let's recap. Horizontal lines start with y equals and also have a slope of 0. Okay, now let's go up here to vertical lines once again, and this is just review, guys, because we've already done this before. We just want to make sure we remember that. So vertical lines always start with, you guys remember, these will always start with x equals. Now again, let's look at number 3 to get that point across a little better. So we have graph the line x equals -2. Okay, well, like I said, these are vertical lines, so it's going to go straight up and down. And it's going to go straight up and down at what? At x equals -2. Well, where is x equals -2? X equals -2 right there. Okay, and it has to be a vertical line. So actually, I'm going to have that's actually pretty good. So I have a vertical line at -2. And again, why does it start with x equals? Well, look, what axis did it cross? I'm going to go ahead and highlight them here. This is my, whoops, wrong color. Let me go ahead and delete that real quick. All right, let's try this again. This is my graph. What axis did I cross? The y or the x? Well, it looks like I'm crossing this other line, which is the x-axis. So once again, it has to start with x equals because that graph is crossing the x-axis. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and erase that for now. So let's go ahead and continue. So number 4 says, write the equation of the graph and determine the slope. Well, once again, it's a vertical line. So right off the bat, I know it has to be, or at least it has to start with x equals. Okay? Well, let's see. Where does x, well, what is it? X equals what? Well, I can tell you right now that this graph intersects the x-axis at, let's see, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, it intersects the x-axis at 7, comma 0, which is actually an x-intercept, right? It hits right on the x-axis. So, which one of those two numbers do I have to use? Well, let's think about it again. Should I use the 7 or the 0? Well, just like before, this is my x-coordinate, this is my y-coordinate. Which one am I interested in here in my equation? I'm interested in the x. So x equals 7. Okay? Alright, so I hope that made a little bit more sense now as to why I got y equals -8 on this left side. But in this case, we get x equals x equals 7 because we have a vertical line that crosses through the point 7, comma 0. Okay, now comes slope. So if you guys remember, I know I've covered it with Mr. Slope Guy. If you guys remember that video, or this is a new way of remembering this. See how I showed you guys over here on the right, I'm sorry, on the left side, this method right here? Well, there's another method that you can use for vertical lines. So for vertical lines, what I want you guys to do is make one big U, okay? And what I want you to do is actually draw little arrows at the end of this line that you drew, okay? So why did I have you guys draw a U? Because actually we can say that this is undefined, okay? Vertical lines, as you see right here with my little sketch, this line right here is a vertical line, which means it goes straight up and down, which here is represented on a U, which means my slope here is undefined. Okay, so we have a slope that is undefined. Okay, and if that doesn't quite convince you guys, remember you can always test 2 points out here to show you that it truly is undefined. So if you want, maybe pick like this point. That's another point that's on the line, so I should be able to use that. So as I go from this point here, let me go ahead and highlight it real quick. As I go from this point to this point, let's see. What's my rise? Well, my rise is 5. What's my run? My run is 0. Go ahead and type in on your calculator 5 divided by 0 and see what you get. You're going to get exactly that. You're going to get an error, which means that it's an undefined slope. Okay? So go ahead, and if this for some reason doesn't make sense, guys, I would go back and rewatch the video on finding the x and finding vertical and horizontal lines, writing their equations and graphing them. Okay, we've had a section in the past where we did those things. Okay, so let's go ahead and see the first few problems here. So let's see. Let's see if we can work backwards. All right, so now what we're going to do is the exact opposite, or we're going to work just in the opposite direction. So we're going to actually write the equation of the line described. If we have a line with an undefined slope that passes through the point 5, -6. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at that first part though. It says an undefined slope. Which one of these has an undefined slope, guys? Is it the horizontal line or the vertical line? Well, as we saw here in this chart, it's the vertical line. Look, we have it right here. The vertical line are the ones that have an undefined slope. So what does that mean? If we're writing an equation, that we know it has to start with what? It has to start with x equals, okay? So even before that, what I want to do is make this a little more clear, guys. When we're given a slope that's either undefined or 0, we only have two options. It's either going to be a vertical line or it's going to be a horizontal line. In other words, it's either going to be a line that starts with x equals a number, or it's going to be y equals a number. Okay? So, which one is it? Well, as we said, undefined slope is actually x equals, so this is our only option. This one will not work. Okay? So let's go ahead and start writing an equation. Well, it's x equals what? Okay? X equals what, guys? Okay? I'm going to have you think about it for a second, but I want to see if you guys can figure it out. Okay? Well, let's go ahead and continue then. Remember, this is my x coordinate, this is my y coordinate. Okay? So, what am I interested in? The 5 or the -6? Well, if my equation starts with x equals then I definitely need to be looking at my x coordinate. So in this case, it's x equals 5. So again, my final answer here is x equals 5. Okay, and just to make it clear, guys, I even gave you a small hint down here. It says what kind of an equation has an undefined slope. That's exactly what we talked about right here. You either have this option or this option, but an undefined slope is actually the vertical line. So we have x equals 5. Okay, I want to try one more with you and see if you guys can try some on your own. So let's go ahead and look at number 2. So what does it say? It says, write the equation of a line that has a slope of 0 and passes through the point -2, -1. Okay, so which type of line has a slope of 0? Well, again, we either have this option, which starts with x equals, oops, I shouldn't write x equals 0, just x equals, or we have this option. So we either have a vertical line or a horizontal line. Well, which one of those has a slope of 0? That would be this one, not the vertical line. It would be a horizontal line. And as we know from horizontal lines from previously, we know that they start with y equals. So, again, label your point as x and y. So which one are we interested in? We're interested in the -1. So my answer here is y equals -1. Okay? Alright, so I'm hoping this is starting to make a little more sense. What I want you guys to do right now is go ahead and try number 3 on your own and see how you do. So go ahead and pause the video and try it on your own. Alright guys, let's go ahead and take a quick look at number 3. So it says, if m equals 0 and the line passes through -7, 10, determine the equation of the line. So m equals 0 and it passes through this point. Well, m equals what? Well, in other words, m stands for what? M stands for slope. So this essentially is asking me what if my slope is 0 and it passes through the point -7, 10, determine the equation of the line. So our hint down here says what kind of an equation has a 0 slope? Is it the vertical, which starts with x equals, or is it the horizontal, which starts with y equals? Well, it's actually the y equals. It's the horizontal line, okay? Remember, use your 2 letters to help you identify which one's which. If you make a z or a u, again, let me go ahead and use a different color here. These two are horizontal lines, right? And you spell out 0. This right here is a vertical line, and you spell out undefined. Okay, so actually, which one is 0? Well, it's the horizontal lines, and hence we have to start with something that starts with y equals. The only other piece of information we need is the fact that it goes through this point, so I'm going to label it xy. But which one are we interested in, the y or the x? I'm interested in the y, so my y here is 10. So my final answer is y equals 10. All right. Next one, write the equation of this line. Okay, well, let's go ahead and do that. What kind of line is this? Well, this is a horizontal line, and we know from before that we have 2 options. It's x equals for vertical and y equals for horizontal. And this one happens to be a horizontal, so I know for a fact it starts with y equals. Now, y equals what? Well, let's go ahead and find a point on this graph. Okay, How about that one, the one that's right on the y-axis, the y-intercept? What's that ordered pair? That's the ordered pair 0, comma, -9. Okay, so this has to be y equals -9 for my equation. Now, I just want to make sure that you guys start gaining a little bit more of a conceptual understanding here. I picked randomly that point right there, 0, comma, -9, but you can choose any point on that line and you will notice that something never changes. Let me go ahead and do this point, maybe that one, and how about this one over here? I'm going to go ahead and write the ordered pairs for these. So this is -8, comma, -9. This is -4, comma, -9. And this is 9, comma, -9. So why do we choose y equals -9? How come we don't pick any other number? We'll take a look at this. What is my y value each and every one of those ordered pairs? It's always -9. Now the others change. So this is a -8, this is a -4, 0, 9. Those are okay to change because we're just moving left and right on the x-axis. But the y never changes. It always remains a -9. So because the y never changes, then the y is always equal to -9. That's how we write an equation of a line for a horizontal and a vertical line. Okay, let's take a look at number 5. See how you do. All right, so we have a line that passes through the point -2, comma, 12, and it has an undefined slope. So what kind of equation has an undefined slope? Again, if you like, I would recommend that you draw your two scenarios that we know from the top. If it's vertical, it has to be an x equals. If it's horizontal, it's a y equals. Okay. Which one of those had an undefined slope? Well, if we look back up top at our chart, the one that had an undefined slope was right here, the x equals equation. Okay, so I know for a fact this is going to start with x equals. This is my x coordinate. This is my y coordinate. So which one are we interested in? Well, it's the equation starts with x equals, so I'm interested in the x coordinate. So it would be x equals -2. All right. What I want you guys to do is pause the video for a second and try out number 6, and we will double check it when you get back. All right, guys, let's try out number 6. So if you notice, this is a vertical line. Once more, if it helps, draw your two scenarios. Vertical lines start with x equals. Horizontal line starts with y equals. In this case, we have a vertical line, so I definitely start with x equals. Well, let's find a point on this line. I always like to pick the one that's right on the axis, the one that's intersecting with the axis and that particular line. In this case, it is, well, what is it? It's 0. Oops. Let me go ahead and erase that. It's 1, comma, 0. In other words, my x and my y. But because this starts with x equals, which one am I interested? This one or this one? Oh, it starts with x equals, so it looks like it's going to be x equals 1 because that's my value for x in this particular graph. Okay? So I think that is it for those types of problems, guys. I think what we want to do for the next few is to go ahead and incorporate a little bit more of what we've learned in the past with the stuff that we just learned. So let's see if we can figure out the next few problems out. I'm going to try out 7 and 8 with you guys, and then you guys will try 9 and 10. So, number 7 says, write an equation of the line that passes through the points 4, -4, and 0, -4. Okay, well, let's go ahead and do it. First, remember what we had to look at up top on the problems up here. We actually had to find out, first off, well, let me actually go back real quick and read one of these problems. It said a line that passes through the point -2, 12 that has an undefined slope. So we were given the fact that it was an undefined slope. Here we don't know slope. We are given 2 points, but we don't have the slope. So why don't we actually take that as a strategy here and identify what our slope is? So let's calculate our slope, which we know how to do. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and call this x1, y1, x2, y2, and use our slope equation. So we get -4 minus 4 minus a -4 actually, excuse me, over 0 minus 4. So what happens here? Opposite of a -4 is a positive. So -4 plus 4 is a 0. 0 minus 4 is a -4. If you guys type that into your calculator, 0 divided by -4, you should get a 0. Okay, so what did I just say? If m is 0, then my slope is 0. Well, again, which type of line has slope 0? Is it the vertical line that has x equals, or the horizontal line that starts with y equals? You look back at the top of your page, again, you'll remember that the one that has a slope that is undefined is the vertical line, and hence it must start with x equals. Okay, I'm sorry, totally messed that up. It's the y equals line. Give me 1 second. Let me go ahead and erase that real quick. So again, if I were to draw this right here, horizontal lines there have slope of 0. Vertical lines here have a slope that is undefined. So I caught myself making that error even before I left it there and forgot about it. So this is actually a slope of 0, and hence it has to be a horizontal line, meaning it has to start with y equals. Sorry about that earlier mistake. So it's y equals. So which value am I substituting in here? What is my number? Well, let's take a look at our y equals, and hopefully we can start to notice something here. My y value here is -4, but notice what it is on the other point as well. Just like I explained up in the previous problem, regardless of which point you pick on that line, because it is a horizontal line with a slope 0, then the y value should never change. And we make that clear right in this particular problem. The -4's never change, meaning that my y equals equation has to be y equals -4. All right, so let's try out number 8 and see how we do on that one. So it says, write the equation of a line that passes through the points 0, -2 and 0, 4. Now, you have 2 options, okay? And I want to show you guys as many methods as possible because I want you guys to choose the one that you guys feel is best for you. For number 8, we can go ahead and solve, or rather identify or calculate what my slope is, and from there identify what type of line do we need, and finally what value we should add to that particular equation. So basically do exactly what we did for number 7. Or we can use some of the conjectures we made about number 7 and just look at our ordered pairs. Remember in number 7 how -4 never changed. That was the y value. The y value never changed, hence we had a y equals the -4. What do you guys notice never changes here? hopefully you guys noticed that it was the 0 that never changed. Now, that 0 is always in what position? The x position or the y position? This is my x, this is my y. My x, this is my y. It was on the x position. So guess what it's going to start with? That's right, it's going to start with an x equals. And what value was x always? X equals 0. Now, don't let this answer of 0 here confuse you guys. This is the equation of the line of this particular graph, of this particular function, okay? So it was an x equals, right? Because we always had something here that never changed. In this case, it was an x equals 0. Okay, if you want to, go back and actually try it out just like number 7. Calculate the slope. You'll notice that the slope in this case is actually undefined, and because it's undefined, then you know it has to be a vertical line. Hence, it has to start with x equals. Okay, so go ahead and try that out if you want to. But for now, let's go ahead and pause the video and try out number 9 and number 10. And once again, what I'm going to try to do is actually I'm going to try to answer 9 and 10 when we get back using both methods that I tried just now. Okay, so pause the video and try those out. All right, guys, let's go ahead and take a look at number 9 and number 10. So I'm going to try number 9 just like I tried number 7 and 10 just like I tried number 8. So it says write an equation of the line that passes through the points negative 12 comma 7 and negative 12 comma negative 8. So again, to identify what equation we need to use, we need to first establish what slope we have. Okay, so let's calculate slope. So we have m equals, I'm going to call this x1, y1, x2, y2. We know our equation of the slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So let's go ahead and substitute those values in here. So y2 is negative 8 minus my y1, which is 7. x2 is negative 12 minus x1, which is another negative 12. So this, in fact, turns into positive because the opposite of a negative is a positive. So we get negative 15 over negative 12 plus 12 is a 0. If you type that into your calculator, guys, you will notice you get an undefined slope. It'll either say error or actually, I'm not sure what other thing it would tell you besides error. Or actually, it might actually tell you undefined. So this is an undefined slope. So like before, we know that we have two options. Vertical lines, which start with x equals, horizontal lines, which start with y equals. Which one of those two have an undefined slope? Well, if we remember from up here, the undefined slopes are the ones that are vertical, which means it has to start with an x equal. Okay, so it starts with x equals. Now, which one are we interested in, the x value or the y value? Well, in this case, since it starts with x equals, we're interested in all the x values, which in this case is exactly the same as it should. So we have x equals negative 12. Okay, so hopefully you guys got the same answer for number 9. Now I'm going to do number 10 just like I did number 11. I'm sorry, number 11, number 8. But just realize and understand that you could have done any of these problems, 7 through 10, in whichever method you want. I just want to show you guys different methods to do it because I want you guys to start gaining a more conceptual understanding of these concepts so you guys can make your own conclusions and even come up with your own methods of solving these particular problems. Excuse me. Okay, so let's go ahead and try out number 10 to finish off these notes. So again, let's notice what we're given here and see if we can identify something about those points. So it says, write an equation of the line that passes through the points negative 1, negative 3, and 4, comma, negative 3. What do you notice stays the same in both of those points? I'm sure by now you can tell that it's the y values. The y values here never change. This is my x, this is my y, this is my x, this is my y. My x changed, but my y did not. And because my y did not, then it has to be a y equals equation. Okay? And what is my y value always at that y coordinate? It's always a negative 3. And hence my equation is just y equals negative 3. Okay? Now, if your argument right now is, okay, well, that's cool and all, and that's a really simple way of finding the equation, but how do we know the slope now? Or how do we know any other information from here? Well, we can just continue working backwards. If we know that the equation is a y equals, okay, then what axis is it crossing? Okay, let me draw a quick little graph here. If it's a y equals line, then it has to be crossing the y-axis, and we'll look at that. We know it has to be a horizontal line, so we just deduced a few more bits of information, and because we know it's horizontal, then we know it has to have a slope of 0. Okay, it has a slope of 0. So we basically just did number 10 in a shorter version that still gave us all the exact same information that we got from number 9, except we really honestly didn't have to calculate much. But again, whichever method works for you, that is the best method. Okay, so I think we are pretty good with section 3.4, and we are ready to move on to the next section. Okay, so go ahead and stop the video at this time. I would highly recommend you guys go straight to your homework, try it out, make sure you understand everything that is on there. If not, please come back to this video and rewatch any section of it. That's the great thing about having these on YouTube, guys. You guys can go replay it as many times as you want, replay as many parts of it as you want. You don't even have to rewatch the entire video, just whatever section did not make sense. Alright guys, well this is it for now, so I will see you guys next time. Take care, bye.